Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Open Door Community Church Podcast After Service.
You have such a great radio voice.
Oh, it's such garbage. It's such garbage.
Has it recovered a little bit? I know on Sunday you had you were suffering from allergies.
Yeah. No, I'm fine. It was, I think part of it also is when you do Hood to Coast, you're talking so much because you're in a van and you sleep almost not at all. I checked my watch and it said I got an hour and 39 minutes of sleep.
Ooh.
Yeah, but that's pretty typical, right?
That's brutal.
And Dennis, our mutual friend, he was our driver.
Yep. Oh, was he?
Yeah, and we got really kind of one opportunity to nap. And there's like 5 of us in the van, 2 people sleeping outside the van. And the fan got all fogged up, and we all kind of woke up an hour and a half later and just sticky from the humidity in the car. And after the fact, he admitted to me that at that moment he woke up, he's like, why am I here? Why am I doing this? And then when it was all over, he's like, I think I kind of want to do this again, and maybe I'll run next year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he doesn't like to run. But, just for the sake of folks listening in our opening banter, my team, the van specifically that I had, I was one of the fastest people in my van, and I ran slower than I ever have in this. But there was
this is the Hood to Coast.
This is the Hood to Coast. Yep. And there was a guy named Jim in our van who is 64, and he ran about 13-minute miles, and he was not the slowest person in our van.
Huh.
The person who was slowest, I could have walked faster than she ran. And that's not me trying to be mean. It's just, for Dennis, his perspective was thinking, oh, this is for like elite athletes and stuff. And when he came out, he's like, oh, I could do that. It was fun. It's the first time I've done it in 5 years. And, I got done with it. And I remember the last leg, I had about 3 miles left. And I just went, I've kind of done this. Like, I've accomplished this. I'm going to just relax. I'm 13 miles into 16 miles. I can do this. So it was, it wasn't easy finishing up, but it was more like, all right, I've proved that this is something I can do. And,
good.
So I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to do it again, even if I had to manufacture that opportunity all by myself.
But you did it, and people enjoyed it. So there you go.
Yeah, it was cool.
And you're recovered now?
Yeah, I went for a run earlier today, and I was surprised at how miserable it felt. I thought I was going to be like, woo! And it was more like, I'm still tired. I'm not ready yet. It takes a couple of weeks to kind of physically recuperate.
Oh, it does.
But,
okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right.
So what have you been up to this week? What
have I been doing?
Are the boys back to school, or is that this week?
They went back Tuesday. Yeah.
Okay, same with Sam.
Yeah, they went back Tuesday. They're excited. They're driving themselves to school now, which is both good because I don't have to do it, but there's also a sadness that those years of me taking them and getting them are fully and finally over, and that's a little sad. I remember, walking them to school or riding our bikes to school when they were in grade school, and I've known this time was coming. I mean, for the last few years, it's been okay. Enjoy this, even though I really don't want to go get them because I know it's limited. So
yeah,
But they're
Yeah.
doing great. They're enjoying it. They like their classes. I don't know. How's Sam doing?
He was feeling if I can speak for him, a little resentful that summer ended.
He likes summer, huh?
Hey, hey, stop it, you tools. Anyway, just. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, he was just like, he knows that some of his friends didn't start school till next week. And he's like, why do I have to start now? And the first day of school, he's like, he was bored because there was only one class where they actually did anything.
Yeah, that's the way it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he still in middle school? He's still in middle school, right?
Yeah, it's his last year in middle school. He's
Yeah.
one of the oldest kids in his class. His birthday is this month in September, and therefore, we waited a year.
That's smart.
I wish my parents would have waited a year for me. I
Me
was one of the
too.
youngest kids, and yeah, your August birthday. You just had
Yeah,
your birthday
August
this week.
30th. Yeah, which was Tuesday. Yep.
Yeah.
And then so I was literally the youngest in my class, which was horrible. Yeah, especially I think as a guy, that's hard because there's so much about physical development and being able to run or do sports as well as the other kids. And in addition, that was a late bloomer. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
I mean,
hard.
it's fine. It's what it is. But yeah, I wish I would have waited a year. I think they did it because they're like, oh, free babysitting? No. You're going now.
Well, yeah, and you were the youngest.
I was the
not-
youngest. They were
Yeah.
ready. They were ready.
Yeah. Shoo. Let's
Yeah.
go, little Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, so that's my story. But yeah, my birthday was on Tuesday, and yeah, I tried to do it a little different. Okay, I'm a Tolkien fan. I'm a Lord of the Rings nerd, and the way the hobbits celebrate their birthday is instead of getting gifts on their birthday, they give gifts.
That's right.
And we've talked about this for years doing it. And I finally said this year, I'm just going to be the one that starts it. So this year, I don't want any gifts. I don't want nothing. And I took people out to where they want to go. I got them all birthday cards. I got them little gifts. And I wrote wonderful, just how much I appreciate them and thank them for who they are. Just my immediate family, to keep it small. And I made my mother-in-law cry, which was always a win. So,
Yeah.
and what I loved about it, from my perspective, is because we can be so self-centered on our birthdays. It's like this is my day. It's all about me today. And instead, for me, it's all about how other people have blessed me this year. I need to thank them. So,
I think that's an interesting perspective. You got me to think that I did nothing to deserve being born.
mm-hmm.
And therefore, my birthday is really an opportunity to be thankful for the blessing of this life, as opposed to expecting people to celebrate. Look at me, here I am. And that kind of goes to a little bit of the whole Jesus and the grace piece, is that we've done nothing to earn this. And so our salvation is something that we should be thankful for, not expecting people to pat us on the back for.
Yeah.
See, I did that. That's pretty cool, right?
I don't know. We'll see. See if it
Yeah.
sticks.
Yeah.
I hope so. I liked it. So, but we should probably get into because it's 10 after. Should probably get into the message. I'm beginning just a 3-week series on Habakkuk. It's a little book in the Minor Prophets, near the end of the Old Testament, and it's about a prophet who looks at his nation, and he's really upset about the nation that he's in, that it's very wicked. There's a lot of injustice. There's violence. There's strife. Sin is everywhere. And part of the reason I chose that is could we feel like that a little bit today? There's just, things are a mess. and it really bothers him. And so he goes to God and says, God, when are you going to do something about this? And God's response is, I'm going to do something that you won't believe. I'm going to take this other nation, this really wicked nation, and I'm going to punish your nation. And the prophet's response was, I don't get it. That does not make sense to me.
Right.
They're better. They're worse than us. We're better than them. I don't get it. I'm going to sit here and wait on my watchtower till you give me a response, God, because this makes no sense to me. And before I give you my 3 applications, I did get at least one response. I got a couple of them actually, but one of them was like, he said, I really appreciated it because I see the sin in my world and how people treat other people, and it really, really bothers me that this is happening, and it's been an issue in my faith. And so I appreciate that being addressed. There's three applications I had was, one, he's upset by sin, and I quite challenged us to think about how do you respond to sin. And I encourage people to not be angry at sin, to leave that anger for God, instead to grieve it, because God grieves sin as well. To go feel like, oh God, they're messing their lives up, and that makes me sad, or that the judgment that's coming is not something they want. And so just grief over sin, more than just being an angry Christian. There's enough angry Christians out there.
Yeah.
The second one is to let God be judge. And clearly he's expecting and has no problems with God being judge, and yet we tend to not like the idea of God being judge, which I said, that seems weird when we like to judge. We are, in general, humans are pretty judgmental, and we certainly love it when criminals are punished, when we cry out, give us justice. I mean, what a cry today for justice. And yet, at the same time, we don't want God to be judge. And why is that? And that's something to think about in your own life. Why do you not want God to be judge? And then the last point was the fact that there's a subtle self-righteousness here, that he thinks he's better than them, and we need to be really careful of that we think we are better than the people around us, when from his perception of perfection, there's not really any difference. All the wrath rightly should fall on all of us. So that's kind of the summary of the sermon.
Yeah. There were a lot of things that popped in my head. One is the idea that we would like swift justice upon those who have harmed us or harmed those close to us or whatever.
We do.
And then we beg for mercy when it comes to justice being meted out upon us.
We want mercy on us and justice on them.
Yeah. And that's really hard because, and I don't really think that our intention is like let's smash people. It's just that for me personally, when I see somebody that's being hurt, somebody that's being stepped upon or whatever, like, let's swoop down and let's mete out some justice, because it's not about I want to hurt that person. It's that I want to protect somebody else. And I think in some ways that's kind of how we come at it, or at least how we mentally justify it. And yet when we stumble, it's that idea that don't judge me by my outward actions, judge me by my intentions. And, it's like, God, you know me, and you know this isn't what I meant.
Right.
There's such an imbalance there, and I don't, it's the imperfection of our perspective that creates that, and also leads us to say, thank you, God, for not listening to us.
Yeah, and what you were saying, though, it's interesting when you said about the justice for them and mercy for me, but it's interesting. It made me think of that. I believe it's Micah 3:5. It's somewhere in there. It's in Micah. We need to do justly and love mercy for others. We want mercy for them, and we need to act justly on our part. But we've flipped that.
Yeah,
I find that interesting.
Pull this up. No, well, anyway.
He has shown you, oh man, what is good and what the Lord requires of you, but to do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. It's Micah something.
Micah 6.
Is that what it
Micah
is?
6:8. Yes, to do what
6:8,
is just,
yeah, that's
to
it.
show constant love, and to live in humble fellowship. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
just for folks who want to look that up.
There you go.
But I want to affirm the fact that you were much closer to that than I ever would have been. I would have known it was Micah, but the chapter, verse, not even close. Yeah.
You know, it's one of the things I thought about though with that. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I
No,
I
go
want to
for
talk
it.
more about this justice piece, but go ahead.
No, I didn't
Oh,
really have.
It's a thought that I thought afterwards, especially thinking about that person's response about how he struggles with the world being as dark as it is, and why is this being allowed? And I'm wondering if we could, because first of all, I don't think we talk very much in general. I mean, there are those who do, Christians who do talk about God as being judge in the Christian church, but they usually talk about God being judge as he's going to judge them, and he's an angry God, and blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. But in general, we don't embrace God that. I'm just wondering if there is a something that we could miss by or gain by just really embracing God as judge, in that it would speak to our culture being so upset at injustice, so at corruption, that there really is a judge. That should be a comfort, and it's meant to have been a comfort to the oppressed, to those who are suffering injustice in Scripture. I mean, that's the comfort for Habakkuk, is like they're not getting away with this. And so that's just something I'm just wondering about. Is
There's a
I
whole
don't
bunch
know.
there. There's a whole bunch there for me. One is our human understanding of justice is imperfect,
Oh well, yeah,
right? And thank God that, well, we try to enforce justice, and we see time and time again how flawed it is, how subject it is to power and corruption and
Yes.
misunderstanding, misinformation, all those
yes,
things.
yes,
So,
absolutely.
our desire for justice sometimes blinds us to what justice really is supposed to be. And then, if, as you're saying, that there is comfort to be had in saying, God, this is above my pay grade. This is something Vanessa loves to say. It's above my pay grade. I don't understand it. Who am I to determine the fate of somebody else? God, I trust you and know that you'll take care of this. It's kind of that aspect of forgiveness that says, I need to let this go for the sake of myself, and know that, God, you
Yeah.
are going to take care of this, not in my time necessarily, but
Right.
eternally. That there's comfort in there if you allow it. And it's very similar to that whole idea of laying your burdens down and saying, God, I
Yeah.
can't handle this. We don't do a great job of that.
No.
And it also makes me think about how sad it makes me feel for people who don't really understand who Christ is or accept Christ. And when they view that the only opportunity for justice they have is in this world, and
Right.
how desperately they scratch and claw and
Oh,
punch and
yeah.
fight for justice, how painful that should be.
Right.
And how convicting that is for us as Christians, that we are so, that anger, that we are so ready to jump in and point and say, justice, 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 God, damn them to hell, or whatever that is, that it seems
Right.
to say we don't really get the point.
Right, and it's being there's almost from the place of an oppressed person, there's almost a joy in this, in being able to see that the judge is right there taking notes over everything that's happening, and he will bring the sentence down, that they won't get away with it, that it won't stay this way forever, that I don't have to do this. I don't have that, because you're right. I mean, you just think about what's it like being a someone who doesn't believe in Christ, and all they've got to bring justice is what they can wring out of the courts or through society. That's it, which we all know in our souls is completely imperfect and never adequate and is often wrong. And it's like, what a weight, what a grief.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's not dissimilar to when you lose somebody, like when their time on this earth is ended, and you personally don't believe in eternal salvation through Christ. That means that's the end.
That's the end. That's it. And you got nothing left. Yeah.
There's something so empty and painful, about that final goodbye from your perspective. There's no hope in that, and I think that hope is a big part of justice in God, right? It's like,
yes, hope, the hope of judgment. Oh, what a phrase!
it almost sounds a little sacrilegious, right? But I mean, but if you don't look at it as in the hammer of God thumping people out, but as in, God, I trust that my hope in you tells me that I don't need to worry about judgment for this person, because maybe because of your mercy, because of your grace, there's no need to mete out judgment. Right. They'll be forgiven. And shouldn't we hope for that more than anything?
Right. Because this is where Habakkuk ends up. He ends up with two places. One is, as we read in chapter 3, he reads, "O Lord, in your wrath, remember mercy." Oh, God, but don't forget to be merciful, please. And then the other one is, "But I will hope and I will wait for this day, even though there's no evidence of it." Even though, so those are his two kind of responses, is like, "Oh God, remember mercy." So you're right on track with Habakkuk there.
Well, aren't there times as you reflect on your life where you go, "Oh, thank you, God, for your mercy and the way you hesitate," and you've talked about this before in terms of applying judgment, that, I can think of, especially in my 20s, these times where I'm like, oh, that you stayed your hand, you stayed your judgment, and because of that, I still have hope.
Oh, yes, that's so true for me.
Yeah, if, the idea that if you stop my life at a given point, like if I got hit by a car or a bus or whatever at that point, that where would I end up? Or if God just said, I think now's the time when I'm really going to reinforce the rules, bink, and he just snaps his finger, a la Thanos or whatever, and because of where I was at in my life, and he's so patient, and he's like, I know that you want your judgment immediately. It's not time. I want this person to have the other opportunity here.
Right. You think about in your own life, which is what you're saying, and I think about in my life, how many times I have not gotten the appropriate repercussions for my actions. Man, God is so merciful to me all the time. And so, yeah, you're right. Why not ask for that for God, for the people around you?
I think this also kind of goes to something we talked about a few months ago, the idea that sometimes it's difficult to accept the idea that God has chosen not to judge us because of Jesus. And yet we feel the burden that we feel like, but he should punish us. We are worthy of being punished, and the fact that he doesn't do so it's hard to reconcile that with the way that we view things in the world. I think about the way that I've wronged people throughout my life. I talked about that boy Terry that I beat up in my front yard in the 3rd grade or whatever, and it's like I carry that as kind of an arrogant burden because I don't feel forgiven for that for some reason. and I'm sure there are people out there that feel like I have done something so significant that it makes no sense to me that God is not judging me for this. That's something that I struggle with a lot. I don't really struggle with the idea that I am forgiven very much, but I struggle with the idea that some people think they aren't forgivable.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Not that I'm all that in a bag of chips, but
So yeah, it's, I don't know. And maybe because it's just so fresh in my mind, this whole thing. I mean, what if we embraced God as judge, really embraced it to the level that, frankly, Scripture does, without it being but it would have to be talked about and embraced probably differently than those angry Christians, angry preachers out there that you're thinking of. It's a different way. So I don't know. I just feel like it's so speaking to our day right now. This lack of hope of things being made right because things are so wrong. I don't know.
Well, one thing we haven't talked about, and there's not like a lot of time left, but is the idea that we have this other country that we perceive as so much worse than us is the entity that God has chosen to be his instrument of justice. And to me, that's extraordinary humility to say God gets to choose who his instrument is. You don't get to choose. Right. And so if he says that idiot across the street is going to be God's instrument of justice, and he's going to run into your car and it's going to blow up or whatever the situation is, who are we to say who the appropriate instrument is?
We aren't, right? Yeah.
You and I are flawed instruments, and yet God, for whatever reason, allows us, and I'm, very specifically mean that terms, allows me to lead worship, allows you to teach.
Yep.
And
it's a gift.
It's a gift. And in the same way, who are we to say that somebody we think is less than us or worse than us is the instrument of justice? Well, so what?
Oh, the arrogance of that position, right? Yeah.
Right.
Which, by the way, if it's not clear, we need to state that when God brings this justice, we need to be really careful when we say stupid things like, well, Hurricane Katrina was clearly a judgment of God on America for blah, 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 blah. We do not know that.
Yeah.
The only way we know that the Assyrians are the judgment on the nation of Judah is because God bluntly said it.
Right.
Be very, very careful. We don't know that. Which Christians do this all the time. They do it all the time. I think the best that we can say is maybe.
Right. Well, forgive me, this is not my intention to be any kind of political, but the 80s, there was a sense that, AIDS exists as God's punishment of this community of people. Who are we to say that that's true or not? And it doesn't really matter.
Right. I mean, we don't know. Maybe not. But let's treat them with mercy and weep over the fact that people are dying. Right.
Bubonic plague. Millions of people dying. Well, what's that about?
Why did that happen? We don't know. We can
look at Moses and we can look at, the birds that killed all the people because right. But God, like you said, very bluntly said, this is what I'm going to do. Right. It was very clear. He spoke to them and said, this is what's going to happen to you. Right. And just because we want something to be a certain way, we want to project justice or whatever into a certain.
We don't know.
We don't know.
We do know that in the end that God will bring justice. And so this is why people need to come to Jesus, because there is a judge that's coming. And so, trust in him. I mean, that's basically a message. God's going to make the world right. Be on the right side. Be a part of the world that's right. So, next week, we are going to be talking about righteousness through faith. And I am looking forward to a conversation with you, Joe,
Okay.
about forgiveness and trust.
Oh, come on.
Yes, I am. And you're going to like the conversation because you're right with a little bit of nuance.
Well, I want to affirm your humility in acknowledging my correctness. I guess we'll find out next week. And if Jesse's listening or listening back to this, if you could find our conversation many months ago and provide a link,
Repost it.
and just provide a link to people in the comments to say,
Okay.
here's what we're referring to.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Well, folks.
Well, we'll see you guys on Sunday, if not next Wednesday or Thursday. Yeah, Thursday. And have a great week.
Blessings, people.
Blessings. Bye.